Hey guys, my name is Dice Rollin. Today we're going to be taking a look at a movie that brought old-fashioned ghost stories into the modern era. Based from the novel of the same name by Peter Straub and written by Lawrence D. Cohen, Ghost Story was directed by John Irvin. It was released on December 18th, 1981. Despite its prestigious cast, it received very uneven reviews from critics, who tended to give it a thumbs down. Most of this was due to the belief that it didn't remain faithful to its source material, and felt boring. A sin committed by the previous generation is now haunting the present. It's time to uncover the truth about a tragic event that a group of elderly men have attempted to keep buried for decades. So without further ado, this is my review of Ghost Story. The movie begins with a quick slideshow of some elderly gentlemen dealing with night terrors and insomnia. Oh come on, that's not fair. They've already gotten up to go to the bathroom 5 times each tonight. Okay. After the opening credits, we're treated to Sears James, played by the late John Houseman, telling a ghost story, and this wouldn't be the first time. Upon finishing his story, his 3 companions, Edward Wanderley, played by the late Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Ricky Hawthorne, played by the late Fred Astaire, John Jaffrey, played by the late Melvyn Douglas, prepare to head home, but not before a toast.
The Chowder Society.
You know, I'm disappointed. There's not a bit of soup in sight. But this is a New England town, so I guess it makes sense. Elsewhere in New York, there seems to be some tension between David, played by Craig Wasson, and his female company. This results in a grotesque jump scare, and David falling to his death from his apartment. Well, I believe this is some of the first male nudity I've had to censor on this channel. David's brother, Don, also played by Craig Wasson, receives the news about his death from his father and returns home to Vermont. While his father seems to think that David's death was an accident, Don isn't convinced.
Jesus Christ, Dad, I'm telling you something happened. I'm telling you something. I think he may have been murdered. Stop it.
During this already Jenga-esque dinner, Don tells him that he knew the woman David was going to marry. More than that, he had slept with her. Obviously, this goes over very well. After his brother's funeral, Don and Edward attempt to reconcile and make plans to bond more. That night, all 4 members of the Chowder Society are subjected to more nightmares. The following day, Edward is coaxed out of his home by what looks like his deceased son. He's frightened by quite the visage, which causes him to fall off the bridge to an icy death below. With yet another death in his family, Don goes looking through some of his father's things, and finds an old photograph of the Chowder Society and a young woman, but her face is blurred. Knowing that something has to be done, but not quite knowing what, Ricky goes to an abandoned house. Here, he finds Gregory, played by Miguel Fernandez, and Fenny, played by Lance Holcomb, who appear to be squatting, but, as Gregory says, they know the owner. This is something that Ricky finds hard to believe, since there hasn't been an owner of this house for quite some time. Regardless, Ricky leaves given the hostile presence before him. What he doesn't know is it sounds like Gregory wasn't lying, as he and Fenny speak with a mysterious woman about their plans moving forward. Ricky's first stop after his visit is to the police, to identify and report the thugs. Turns out that Gregory and Fenny are psych ward escapees, and Gregory is part of some kind of cult. However, when a police officer goes to the house to investigate, he finds no one, and no signs that anyone has been there for years. At the same time, Edward's cause of death is ruled as a suicide, even though, once again, Don doesn't believe this. Neither does Ricky, who invites Don out to eat and talk. He explains that he believes that the remaining 3 members of the Chowder Society, as well as those related to them, are in danger. While doing some more snooping around later that night, Don comes face to face with Gregory and Fenny as well. They leave him with some ominous warnings and a necklace before disappearing. Once again, the Chowder Society, or those remaining, meet to discuss things, including the photograph that Don had found. Don himself arrives with a proposition.
I want to buy my way into the Chowder Society.
Buy? What did you say?
With a story, isn't that the price of admission?
So he tells a story involving himself and a red-headed woman named Alma, played by Alice Krige, he met while teaching, and the relationship that formed between them over the course of some time. Everything seems to go quite well, with both of them as happy as can be, until something seems to switch in Alma's personality. For one, she seems to be obsessed with going to Don's hometown in Melbourne, and for 2, I guess she's one of those sleepwalkers that will make you sleep with one eye open. Actually, just the fact that she was in Sleepwalkers should be enough. All of this culminates in Dawn bringing Alma home and telling her that the plan to get married is off. She gets a touch upset about this, naturally, so it seems the honeymoon phase has ended before it even began, as the time Dawn spent with Alma has been detrimental to his job. He goes to her house after she doesn't show for work and finds it vacant. Later on, Dawn calls David and is told that his brother is with Alma now. Instead of being perhaps jealous or resentful, Dawn warns David that there's something not quite right about her and he should leave her. Obviously, David doesn't believe him, and as Dawn explains, when David died, Alma was nowhere to be found. Sears wants to brush this whole thing off, but Dawn tells him that this was a story that actually happened. He even shows them the photograph he'd found in his father's trunk, as well as the necklace that was given to him by Gregory. Sears is still in denial, but both Ricky and John believe Dawn. More night terrors to be had by the gentleman before Millie, played by the late Jacqueline Brooks, wakes John the following morning. She tries to get him to tell her what he had been having a nightmare about that caused him to nearly strangle her, but he dismisses her. There also seems to be a mysterious disappearing woman to see the doctor. However, John is too busy having some sort of severe attack, and there's no medicine to help him around. Not only that, but the woman, Eva, is back. John's sudden death convinces Sears to tell Dawn the truth, so he and Ricky do just that.
We thought it had nothing to do with any of our problems.
So we're treated to another flashback, this time 50 years ago, with the Young Chowder Society, Sears played by Ken Olin, Edward played by the late Kurt Johnson, Ricky played by the late Tim Choate, and John played by the late Mark Chamberlain. Pretty soon after they first saw Eva, they were all clamoring over each other for her affection. However, it was Edward who pursued a relationship with her. Unfortunately, it seems that Edward had some intimacy issues, and didn't want the rest of the society to know. After drinking one evening, the four of them arrive at Eva's house. After some drunken dancing, Eva picks up on something else going on among them. As a form of getting even, Eva goes around kissing them. She then threatens to tell the other three what actually happened during her and Edward's night together, which incites Edward to shove her and accidentally hit her head on the mantle. John pronounces her dead, and Ricky insists they call the police, but Sears tells them they'll hide the body instead. The problem with that plan is that as the car they put her in sinks into the pond, she regains consciousness. So if they hadn't murdered her before, they definitely did this time. And so this is what happened. Dawn concludes that Eva and Alma are the same person, who's come back to haunt them and seek revenge. So Dawn, Ricky, and Sears go back to Eva's house, where Dawn falls through the stairs and breaks his leg. Sears heads out to get help, leaving Ricky with Dawn. On his way, he comes across the visage of Eva, and loses control of his car, running into a snowbank. In the dark, Sears is attacked by Eva and Fenny. With no sign of Sears, Ricky leaves the house and gets a ride from a passing car. However, this car is driven by Gregory. Apparently, Eva is still in the car that's at the bottom of the pond, and Gregory claims she promised him and Fenny immortality. Ricky takes matters into his own hands and stabs Gregory, causing the car to roll over. Thankfully, Ricky survives and gets help to drag up the car from the pond. Meanwhile, Dawn isn't alone in Eva's house.
Aren't you even going to say hello?
She plans to kill Dawn just like the others, but just in time, Ricky and the police get the car to land and discover what remains of Eva. So, Dawn is saved and Eva is finally put to rest. And with some haunting music, the credits roll. Ghost Story truly lives up to its title, whatever you have in your head upon hearing its name, and the premise is likely exactly what you're going to get. It tells a somewhat traditional paranormal tale, and does so in a grand sort of fashion. It takes its time reeling you in, and letting you get invested in what you're shown. Granted, this probably wouldn't be the kind of movie for someone who's looking for a ghost film that will scare them out of their seat. It's not hard at all to guess where things are going, and see twists coming, but it's still very much enjoyable, and it does still manage to give you a scare here and there, without throwing jump scare after jump scare at you. The point of this movie is more to unsettle you, just like you would be if someone were telling you a scary story by the fire on a dark night. All of the veteran actors we have here do a wonderful job. In a way, it's poetic to see them together, portraying gentlemen who are contending with their past, and what's left of their lives, how that affects the next generation and such. It's almost bittersweet in a way, since for 75% of the group it was their last film. Craig Wasson and Alice Krige technically had to play two different parts each. For Wasson, he played both Wanderley brothers. I appreciate that he acted kind of as the audience in this movie, the person who is going through all of this, and trying trying to unravel the history behind why these things were happening. Krige, though essentially playing the same character, but with a different name, brought an ethereal beauty and menace to her character. She made the switch between a lovely and free woman to a distraught and vengeance-consumed woman. When she wanted to be, she did feel like a threatening and haunting force. If you're shooting a movie that takes place in the New England area, and you do so in that very place, you'll come across easily enough. And it does for Ghost Story. It feels authentic, and exactly like a rather small town that's been there forever. It fits the setting you might expect from an American ghost story. Just looking at shots of the houses and such covered in snow sets the mood well enough on its own. The atmosphere is essentially the same. It's distinct and eerie. It holds a sense of dread and mystery that contributes to what's happening. All special effects that we see are practical. Both Dick Smith and Rick Baker did work for this film, and it shows quite well. Granted, the green screen effects aren't great, but I feel the rotting corpse props more than make up for that. Each one is different from the next, and they all look grotesque and horrifying. It's unfortunate that one of the creations from Mr. Smith was cut out of the movie, but the rest of his work didn't suffer for it. I think the most impressive piece is the one we see during the climax, after the car and Eva have been extracted from the pond. This was more a case of an actor wearing the makeup, and then the switch to the prop as it just disintegrated in front of our eyes. The score was composed by Philippe Sardé, who has done work on numerous movies of a variety of genres. He was sought out to bring a classical feel to the score, and I think he did just that. It fits in with the gothic American vibe of the movie. It's both unsettling and gut-wrenching. It adds to the tension of some moments, and enhances the dread you feel in others. With all that being said, I'm giving Ghost Story 7.5 out of 10 bloody thumbs up. I really feel that Ghost Story breathed new life into a subgenre of horror that was starting to die off by the late 70s and early 80s. It may not be for everyone, like I mentioned, especially if you prefer your ghost and paranormal movies to be more action-packed and suspenseful. This is a slow burn type of film that pays homage to old-fashioned elements of the subgenre. It does bring some newer, for the time, portions to the story. Unfortunately, it just wasn't given the kind of attention it deserved, so it was brushed aside to be picked up later on by people who really enjoy movies involving ghosts. I would recommend Ghost Story to, well, Ghost Story fanatics, old school actor enthusiasts, Peter Straub fans, and anyone who would like to see more male nudity in horror movies. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like to let me know. Don't forget to leave a comment down below telling me what you think of this movie, and if you have any suggestions for horror movies you would like to see me review in the future. You can support the channel through my Patreon, where you would get exclusive and early access to videos like this. Also, don't forget to share this video to help the channel grow, and subscribe for more videos like this. See you later.
I will show you things that you have never seen, and I will see the life run out of you.